Alright, what's up guys? Matt here from LOON Outdoors, and today we're tying a pretty cool saltwater crab pattern. It's actually one of my favorite flies to tie. So, in the vise today we have a Gamakatsu. It's the SL11 3H. This one's a 1/0. You can tie them down to like size 6 and 8s. But that gets a little bit small, and I wanted this to show up well on camera. So, I have white Vivus 50D, or actually, sorry, this is 100D. It's a little bit stouter of a thread than I normally use. And I'm just going to go ahead and start by doing touching turns down the hook shank, kind of establishing where I want my overall body length to be for this little crab pattern. I'm going to come back forward. I'm not really worried about too much here. And once I get just about, need to tighten that guy up a little bit. I had to change over to the big game jaws. It's not my first out jaw for my style of tying typically. Most of the time I'm using the shank jaw for steelhead flies. But, so I go about, I'm going to call it 2/3-ish of the way towards the eye of the hook, allowing myself just a little bit of room for these double pupil eyes. Now you don't have to use the double pupil eyes. I do like the yellow color. You could just use a yellow eye. Really, it's all up to you. So what I have here, this is some Flyman Fishing expandable body tubing stuff. For years and years and years, they've had this in like tons of bright colors, and they've been using it for like musky flies and like propping up bucktail, but it makes a really killer body shape as well for a little crab. I cut this to about a 2-inch length. There is some waste here. You could be far more thrifty and save a little bit. So as you can see, I mean, the material just kind of goes rip right over the top. Not a big issue here. And what I do is, since it's a woven material, I'm going to go ahead and I like to get it started. And there's a multitude of ways to do this, but I kind of dig dropping in some zap, or this is some Loctite. Everything to me as a fly tyer is Zap-A-Gap, because that was the #1 commercially available crazy glue forever. So this fly does require quite a few whip finishes, so I like to use my hands for that, just because I don't want to pick up another tool, and that's just the way I learned. I've actually never learned to use a whip finisher properly, and would struggle horribly if you asked me to. So what I do now is I kind of flip this fly over, and I'm not only giving the glue a little bit of time to dry, but I'm adding just a little accent here. And you want to keep your pens, for the most part, away from where you've applied crazy glue, or else it's a great way to ruin a good pen. But once it's set up, you can come in and create an awesome little edge. So now you can see the way I've laid this in here, there's actually, this material lays flat. I don't know if you guys can see that. So I put the flat going like this way. And what that's going to allow you to do is, when this crab starts to take a little bit more shape here, you're going to be able to get this really big teardrop shape, versus if you're trying to push it against, you see it wants to become like a ball. So what I do is I get my general size down perfect. If you're doing a bunch of these, you might be able to just do it 100% like, hey, that's my length that I'm going to do for all of my crab patterns. And then I slightly torch the edges, and the only reason I'm doing that is because this material can fray, especially when you push it back. This part does get a little bit tricky. You kind of have to hold everything back while holding, like starting your thread. So I'll go ahead and trim off the excess here, and you can kind of see that everything will want to, you'll just go ahead and wrap in there, and then you're going to get a really, really good little crab body. It kind of occludes the eye sometimes. I'm going to fit 50 pound through there still. I'm not stressed out at all. This fly looks incredibly daunting to tie. Believe me, I looked at it and I was like, man, how do they tie that? Kind of tripped out on it for a while, and it's actually not that tough of a tie. So to clean up the loose ends here, and this is kind of creating a barrier so this material doesn't slip out as well from underneath the thread, is I use the end of my lighter and I just push it up just a little bit. So we'll need the lighter again here in a second. So the cool thing here is we will go ahead and I'm going to color this guy up. And we're going to use brown as like a spot color on this crab anyways. So the brown marker comes in super handy, and I'll go ahead and just use a little bit of Loctite. This is the super ultra liquid control super glue. I don't know what it does different than other super glues, but I like it. So before we got started here, because I didn't want you guys to watch paint dry, I built some eyes. And the other thing that I built are these are just overhand knots, and you can see they turn into loops. So the cool thing that I like to do with this is I get my knots together. So I have 2 lassos, and I'm going to go ahead and cut and kind of just kiss them with fire just a bit like you would a San Juan worm. This is just an ultra chenille or a vernille, and it's going to create our claw segments. Since I'm going to put 6 legs on this fly. Oops. I did the same thing with the vernille for creating the legs, and you can adjust how long you want your legs. I like a little bit of movement on these, so you know, kind of the sky's the limit. So what I do here is I just go through with the D-loop tweezer, and you can see what I'm going to do here is I poke the leg material in, and I'm just going to go ahead and pull it through. And that's going to become our back leg, and I kind of just do the same thing here. Since this material heals very well, it's not a big issue. It's a little tight there. I open up a little bit of a spot that I can just pass this through, and you can kind of just pass the legs through, and the cool thing is it's going to all heal right back up. So one more time, we're going to come through. Whoops. You just want to split them out. And you can use like a leg puller and stuff like that. I don't know what's ended up with mine. I just started using the D-loop tweezers. I have a friend going to Mexico who wants to fish this pattern. So if your hole gets closed up, you can kind of just come back in, weasel your way right back through, root around a bit. This material does self-heal. Leg puller is ideal though. Just going to throw that out there. Don't lose your leg puller. So now we have this awesome crab pattern. And you can see we can adjust where we have the legs, everything like that. So we're going to do the same thing again with the pinchers. And so I just kind of hog through there with the pinchers, and the pinchers I don't get too crazy with it. I just actually, haha, successful. Whoops. When you have that much stuff on your desk, it's you lose a few things here and there. So bobbin threader, leg puller tool, kind of the same story here. You can see what we'll do is we'll kind of, I'm going to go through at an angle. So you come through at an angle here, you slide this guy through and pull back. So once you get that, you can adjust how far out your legs go, and I like to trim back at the body. So we're forming an X pattern here, and I go underneath the shank of the hook. Personally, you could go over the top, it's up to you. I'm going to use the bottom of the hook shank to kind of create a flat surface. My leg puller bobbin threader thing was not wanting to open up quite the way I was hoping it would there. So what you can see now is a really killer little crab starting to come together. So what I'm going to do is, as I get ready to kind of put this all in place, I use the LOON Outdoors UV fly finish in yellow. Everything seems to enjoy yellow right now, and I don't know why more than orange. Can't give you an honest answer on that, but I'm going to go ahead and zap that. And then with the rest of the legs, I actually put the needle inside, and I'm kind of just gluing everything together, for the lack of better terms, creating these awesome little zones here filled with resin, and then we just go ahead and cure it up. So last but not least, we want to do some eyes. So these are some 30-pound mono eyes that I've coated with black UV resin. I burn the ends, and I just simply slide these guys through, and if they don't want to go the way I want them, we can put a little bend in the mono. These you're not going to need a leg puller or anything like that. It's not going to make a big difference, but let's see here, push up, there we go. And you just got to find your spot there. And what you can do is you can actually just bend these once they're in place. So from here, what I'm going to do as I'm securing this is I'm going to switch over to a little bit of the UV fly finish in brown. Maybe we just give them like an extra eye spot there. You can see it starts to soak into the shell quite a bit. And I am going to hold just a little bit of tension here and just kind of bring those eyes right where I want them. I'll go ahead and trim off at the back as well. And I'm going to use some olive also. Just kind of create a little bit of color depth on this. You can actually coat this whole thing with UV resin, this material, and make it float. So you can create some pretty awesome body shapes from that. I'm just going to leave the light on while we come in here and start, you know, just creating a little bit with the olive and the brown of some pretty cool spots. So you get this really awesome looking crab back. Your eyes are 100% secured up front and in the back for optimal action. So I'll just do kind of a hard set here. I go for that full 10 to 15 seconds. I know a lot of guys tend to just hit it and be like, oh, it's good, but that extra few seconds does actually make a difference. So next up, I'm just going to take my Copic marker, Sharpie, Prismacolor, and I'm going to go ahead and create some spots on this crab. You can add a weed guard on here if you so desire. If you're a weed guard guy, I see kind of 50-50 on what people desire, but you can add a weed guard on here. I just typically tie in some 40-pound mono right at this tie-in point up front here. So I'm going to go ahead and model up all of these legs. Sometimes it is a little bit easier to do it and flip it over. So you get this really cool effect of, you know, modeled false movement, if you will. So at the end of the day, you get this killer little crab pattern. You can adjust the eyes to whatever length that you want. You can suck them back in more to the body. But overall, it's going to be a killer crab. And the thing that I like the most about this, and I believe this is the philosophy, at least other than the cool material and shape and all of that stuff, is that this material allows water to flow through it versus a normal crab. They have like tufted bodies or material bodies that are more fibrous. So I think the sink rates might actually be faster on this guy. Oh, we're going to bend that eye up just so it matches and I don't get frustrated. So anyways, guys, that's the Alphonse crab, the Alphonse crab, whatever, the body tubing crab that seems to be incredibly popular right now. So thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next time.